Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our December 2021 community breakfast. The Office of New Haven Affairs at Yale University hosts these breakfasts every month on the first Thursday of the month, unless otherwise noted. And this is a way for us to introduce you to members of the Yale community, Yale staff, students, or faculty, so that they can talk about their areas of expertise, or introduce you or reintroduce you or deepen your knowledge of resources that are available to everyone, free to the public here on campus and through campus now because we're virtual. I am joined by a wonderful guest this morning. Before we get started, I would like to just make a few announcements. One is you may have heard that the university, in partnership with the city, made an announcement about a pledge and a partnership over the next 6 years. The main components of those are that the university will significantly increase its voluntary payments to the city. So we'll pay an additional $52 million over the next 6 years. So combined, the university will be donating approximately $135 million over the next 6 years. This has no precedent across the nation. The university continues to make, be the largest, provide the largest voluntary payment to its host city. And we are unique in that across the country. 3 other components to this announcement. And this announcement, by the way, was a combination of 2 years of hard work and wonderful discussions between members of the Yale community and members of the New Haven community hosted by the City Hall. So another component of this announcement is that a Center for Inclusive Growth will be established by the university. The university is going to donate an additional $5 million toward this initiative. And this growth is going to be guided by an advisory committee comprised of members of the New Haven and Yale communities. And its focus is to help grow the city economically in ways that benefit members of the New Haven community. A third component is the conversion of a block of High Street between Chapel and Elm Streets into a pedestrian and bike-friendly block. Vehicular access will be restricted. This is really a way to increase safety for people who are walking or biking that block. The city will continue to own that block of High Street, but the university is going to pay for the conversion and for the upkeep for that public space. And the last is a commitment by the university. If the university decides to convert any of our taxable property into educational property, thereby non-taxable, there's a 13-year plan where the university pays full taxes on that property for the first 3 years and it steps down by 10% all the way through the end of year 12. I will post a link in the chat so that you can read more details on that and reach out with any questions. I also want to point you to, even though that, as I continue to say every month, the university may be closed for all intents and purposes for events, et cetera. However, there's a robust calendar hosted on a Yale website that shows all of the events that are available virtually to members of the community. One that I want to highlight is takes place today at 2 p.m. The Peabody Museum, even though it's undergoing this huge renovation, continues to host webinars. There's a webinar today that will take place at 4 p.m. and it's called "Shape to Kill: The Evolution of Secret Weapons." This is just an overview of these unique carnivorous siphonophores, which I learned about yesterday. They live together as superorganisms. They are carnivorous, as I mentioned, and they challenge assumptions about evolution. So it promises to be a fascinating webinar by a Yale alum. And last but not least, the New Haven Hiring Initiative is a wonderful resource for New Haven residents who are seeking positions at the university. There are a ton of admin positions that are available, especially in the area of, Chris is going to kill me, clinical roles. So admin in clinical roles, clinical areas, and much more. So I'm going to send a Put a link in the description so that you can subscribe to the New Haven Hiring Initiative newsletter. They regularly post these opportunities and post ways for you to access the Yale STAR system, which is our proprietary job search mechanism, so that you can continue to stay on top of that and share the good news for people in New Haven who are looking for work. There are also ways for people to start as temps, and then those have in the past been converted to permanent positions. So lots of opportunities. Please help us to share the word. So with that, I would like to introduce our wonderful speaker. Zelda Roland is the founding director of the Yale Prison Education Initiative at Dwight Hall, YPEI, which brings access to Yale classes and other campus programming to incarcerated students in Connecticut. A Yale alumna, she received her bachelor's in 2008 and her PhD in 2016. Zelda conceived of and created this program after working with incarcerated students enrolled in the Wesleyan Center for Prison Education at Cheshire Correctional Institution. Over the last 5 years, she has worked to gain support for, organize, staff, and fund the program, which, with its inaugural courses in 2018, marked the first time any incarcerated student had ever earned Yale College credit for completed coursework. As of 2021, she also serves as the inaugural director of the University of New Haven's Prison Education Program and its partnership with YPEI, through which incarcerated students can earn degrees in prison and receive support when released from confinement. In her position, Dr. Roland coordinates YPEI and the University of New Haven's partnerships with the Connecticut Department of Corrections and its facilities, relationships with other national and statewide prison education programs, criminal justice and reentry organizations, an innovative New Haven-based fellowship program that provides college and prison alumni with professional development and mentorship opportunities, and a passionate and broad assembly of faculty, administrators, staff, and students across both campuses who believe in the promise and power of transformative higher education access for incarcerated students. Please help me welcome Dr. Zelda Roland.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thanks for having me here. Just before I start, I was going to say, I think there's like 12 people in the waiting room. Should I admit them? Or are they?
I'll get on it right now. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Great. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to do this efficiently. Can everyone see this? Is this visible? Okay. Thank you so much. It's really nice to be here. I've been coming to these breakfasts for for quite a few years. Oh, is my Zoom in the middle of my thing? Okay. So like Karen said, I'm Zelda Roland. I first moved to New Haven in 2004 for college and came back for graduate school. And I'll just give you a little bit of autobiographical information and tell you about how this program was started. But I started while I was finishing my dissertation for my PhD. I started volunteering in the nearby prison education program run by Wesleyan, where they offer Wesleyan college classes for credit at Cheshire Correctional Institution in Cheshire. And when I started volunteering and teaching with that program, even though I'd been teaching on campus at Yale at that point for years, and I was getting my PhD in art history, so, not from a background in criminal justice, I went into that prison, and those students were by far the best students I'd ever had the opportunity to work with before. And as I continued to work with them, TAing for different classes, running study halls there, I started to see more and more Yale faculty and Yale graduate students who were volunteering their time so that they could work with students in prison, because they were reinvigorating their teaching and they were changing really fundamentally what they thought about the purpose of education. And that was what happened for me. It changed the way I thought about my own education, and particularly my Yale education, and who universities like Yale imagine students, or good students, or future, leaders and citizens to be. And so after working with those students for a while, they really turned to me and said, Zelda, you have to start a program at Yale. We have this program at Wesleyan and it's amazing. Oops, sorry. We have this amazing program at Wesleyan, but it's only in one prison. There's 14 other prisons in Connecticut, and they don't have this kind of opportunity. But they also knew that if we could start a program at Yale, it would have a much larger impact than just on the students in the prisons where we worked in Connecticut. Because when Yale does something, other universities follow. And they really understood that if you could do this at Yale, it will actually make a huge impact for peer institutions and around the country. And so taking great inspiration from programs like Wesleyan and like our sister program in New York State, the Bard Prison Initiative, which offers Bard College degrees in 6 different prisons in the state. We founded YPEI officially as a program of Dwight Hall, Yale Center for Public Service and Social Justice. And it expands on what ends up being decades of informal and unrecognized Yale participation in prison education in various ways. So the more we started to try to propose and grow this program, we realized faculty at the law school or undergraduates through Dwight Hall have been volunteering in prison in so many different ways, tutoring, doing GED tutoring, but there had never before been a program that could offer real Yale courses for credit to students in prison. And there had never really been a student in prison intern who could say, I have this affiliation with Yale. I'm a part of this university. And so it took many, many years and many bureaucratic hesitations and doubts and skepticism on the part of a good number of administrators. And I will say, actually, when I first went to the then Commissioner of Corrections with this idea, Scott Semple, and I sort of had a presentation for him, this is what Wesleyan's doing, and here's what I think we could do at Yale. He stopped me mid-presentation and just said, I've been waiting for someone from Yale to come to me with this for years. And I will do whatever it takes to make this happen. You put me in front of any audience and I will come and help you try to build this. And so with that green light from the Department of Corrections, we then, went to see how could we build this up at Yale. And I'm going to spare you the details of what it took between 2016 and 2018 to make it happen. And I really want to shout out Jacqueline McDonough is here, who's has been the most important person for this program out of Yale's summer session, has supported it at every turn. And everything that I'm talking about wouldn't have been possible at Yale without Jacqueline McDonough. So I want to shout you out. You're the best. But so we were able to, in summer 2018, after 4 years of development, fundraising, and building partnerships with the university, 2 years before we officially became a program at Dwight Hall, and then 2 years just from Dwight Hall, we officially launched by offering 4 Yale summer session courses to students in 2 different state prisons. And this was the first time any incarcerated student had ever earned Yale College credit. It was, once again, thank you, Jacqueline. We offered those classes and we continue to offer them we offered them initially at 2 different prisons, Manson Youth Institution, which is marked here by MYI, and McDougall Walker Correctional Institution at the top, MWI. And we continue to primarily work at McDougall Walker, which is in Suffield, about 50 minutes drive from New Haven. It is the largest prison in the Northeast with a population of 1,500 people. For that first 12-person seminar we offered, which was a section of English 120, reading and writing the modern essay, 600 people asked to be considered for admission. So that gives you a sense of just how, we were completely surprised and overwhelmed that there was so much need and so much interest and also, that means that 600 people had GEDs and are college ready, but were not being given any access to any higher education opportunity to fill that desire. And just a note here, so the adult, we work with adult men between, our students are 23 to 49 years old currently. And also, we don't discriminate against any applicant based on sentence or type of conviction. So what that means for us in practice is we're able to work with extraordinary students who've been waiting sometimes decades, truly, for a program like ours to come along and even allow them to apply, right? Because sometimes a program will say you can apply if you're within 5 years of release or if you're within 10 years. And so we had many students who reading and writing and doing college level work independently for years, but never allowed to access any sort of programming. Since those first classes in 2018, we facilitated 194 unique enrollments in credit-bearing college courses for 43 incarcerated students, with over 70 faculty members and graduate students from across Yale divisions and disciplines extending access to their on-campus research and teaching to students in prison classrooms. Also, over 100 undergraduate students have worked with YPEI as fellows, volunteer peer tutors, research assistants, and members of our transcription network, which I'll maybe say a little more about later. And these are some of the courses we've offered, although this list doesn't include a robust guest lecture series that introduces students to new faculty and topics from across the university, much like visiting lectures on much like this talk on a traditional campus. We like to bring in a lot of people who can sort of introduce our students to, what does this discipline mean? What is this topic? I've never heard of ethnicity, race, and migration. Tell me what exactly what's the texture of that major? So, I'll continue. This is a timeline up until the March 2020 pandemic interruption, which I'll tell you a little bit about what we did. So everyone remembers this week, but on March 12th, the Connecticut Department of Corrections indefinitely suspended all outside programming and visitors. So that includes folks' family and friends. And I haven't changed the slide to continued. We continued to maintain our commitment to students and sent and received assignments by snail mail, fostered independent studies and workshops led by correspondents. And it was, I was just telling Karen, we never really stopped. We never stopped. It was actually a very busy time for us because we moved all of our programming to this correspondence mode. So we were in the office every day printing. I was in the office every day printing. Faculty would email me materials to send into the students. We print them, send them in by snail mail, receive mail back, and then use this Dropbox server to disperse documents to faculty so that they could write comments and feedback. But of course, we couldn't offer credit courses during this time. But some of those correspondence-based offerings that we did offer were, a seminar by correspondence on race, religion, and American empire, a reading group on Tolstoy's War and Peace. Rod Ferguson, who's a professor at Yale, led a seminar on Black Marxism. And then this amazing creative writing workshop, which was led by YPEI student fellows with prominent writers from around the country curating weekly packets and prompts. Writers like recent MacArthur genius Hanif Abdurraqib, Franny Choi, Chen Chen, Alexander Chi, Tavia Nyong'o, Sunny Chiang, and Emily Skillings, who are all at Yale. And we also, I'll drop links maybe at the end, but we had this wonderful collaboration with the Beinecke, where we, through their Creativity in 2020 project documenting people's lives in that year of the pandemic, they passed on and published some works written by our students. And I say this because that whole creative writing workshop we made accessible online so that other programs, both in prison and out, could have access to some of those materials that people developed for our students who were in such tremendous isolation during the pandemic. So I encourage you to take a look at it. Oh, and this is a really beautiful drawing that one of our students made during this time for the workshop. And I'll read a few bits of student testimony from this period. So Kyle wrote to us, during a time when everything seems lost, YPEI has been the constant certainty needed to make it through this pandemic. YPI has been so much more than a team of educators teaching higher ed in prison. They've become a family that refuses to leave a member behind. It was always their mission to keep us engaged, but over the last few months, YPEI made it a top priority to serve us during this pandemic. I want to help change the world we live in, and Yale is giving me that opportunity. I'm forever grateful to each member of the YPEI team. They make me feel like I matter, like my life matters. I will also say, in the midst of the pandemic, we established a really incredible new partnership with the University of New Haven. So for years now, we've offered credited Yale courses through Yale summer session. And you saw the list of courses, English, sociology. We've always had it in the back of our heads that eventually we could find a partner so that we could offer degrees in prison. And in particular, we wanted to offer an associate's degree because it takes much longer to complete the same sequence of classes in prison than it does on campus. So we, over several years, we were exploring this possibility of putting together something with UNH. And in the spring, we made that partnership official. And so for the first time this year, we are now matriculating our incarcerated students in a University of New Haven associate's degree in general studies. It's a broad liberal arts degree with requirements in English, math, and communications. And then nearly half of the degree is electives, although students can pick different specializations. And all of the credits that they've earned to date from Yale transfer seamlessly into that degree. Another really exciting component of that partnership is that if a student is released prior to finishing that degree, they can seamlessly continue enrolling in courses or working towards their degree on campus at UNH and through our partnership between the two programs, or between the one program with two sides, rather. And in the spring, we also received a tremendous and transformative grant from the Mellon Foundation to support this degree partnership and to both expand the program in prison, as well as to develop a new fellowships program on campus that creates opportunities for formerly incarcerated degree alumni of any college and prison program. So not just ours, but people from other programs who like Wesleyan or Bard, to come and be matched with host sites at Yale or at University of New Haven. And I'll confess that I've told Karen this before, but really modeled on the success of the President's Public Service Fellowship, but instead serving college and prison alumni who, for whom we're thinking about how do we extend access to the resources of this university in order to bring them from this college and prison experience to a career in any field. And so we started with 2 fellows this year, and they're working at the Lyman Center at Yale Law School, the Sage Center for Health and Justice. I think they've spoken at this breakfast before, Lisa Puglisi, and also with the philosophy department, actually. And so that happened in the spring. And so since then, we've been sort of trying to build up this partnership, look at all of our students' transcripts, do those transfers, and sort of build out a stronger, bigger program. We're scaling up. And we're thinking about how can we serve, we're limited, we've been limited to date by funding as well as by classroom space inside the prisons. And so now we're trying to figure out how can we expand to serve more students every year. In May of this year, we were able to restore in-person programming inside the prisons. And so, after 15 months pandemic hiatus, we went back in, we admitted a new cohort of students. So we were able to increase our student body. And we offered an English course, a course from the Education Studies Department, a physics course, a grade class called Medicine and the Humanities, and an Introduction to Graphic Design. And then this fall, as our first courses being offered through the University of New Haven, we have a writing seminar, an ethnicity, race, and migration seminar called Race, Space, and Power, and applications of graphic design production for students who wanted to continue with their graphic design learning, a communications class, and a microeconomics class. And we also have a number of sort of, I wouldn't call them extracurriculars, but support services and resources that we bring from campus to continue to engage students outside of the actual classroom. So we still are running a creative writing workshop, which now functions more as a space where students can bring writing that they're working on in progress and have a sort of peer community to read and critique work together. And Professor Ferguson is continuing to run his monthly reading seminar. And then we also bring in all kinds of programming from around campus, like academic strategies program, which helps students at Yale navigate the hidden curriculum of Yale syllabi. So things like time management and procrastination, or exam study tips for economics. And we're bringing those workshops to our students in prison as well, because we want to be able to bring them the as full as possible an experience of being a student on campus. So we have a few through all this programming, we have a few guiding principles that we use. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. So we use existing courses always that are offered to undergraduates on campus at Yale or in Yale summer session and now at UNH. And we never alter course materials or subject matter to address prison or confinement. The courses that we offer replicate on-campus course rigor, expectations, structure, evaluation rubrics, workload, contact hours, and learning outcomes to the best of our abilities. They're taught by compensated, qualified instructors who are also eligible to teach on campus. This is not charity, this is not volunteer work. And we always treat students with the same dignity and respect as on-campus students, and never as research subjects or charity. And I alluded to this last guiding principle before, and I'll touch on it briefly. We also make a point of replicating access to office hours, study hall, studio time for art classes, peer tutoring and academic resources, and support structures to the best of our abilities. So this was our schedule a couple summers ago, but I use this slide to illustrate how that core principle impacts our scheduling. So we are in the prison 5 days a week, year round. But if you could think about, if you're a conventional college student on a typical campus, when you think about the time you spend or spent in college, there's only a certain percentage of your time that is spent in class or in contact hours. And you spend a lot of time doing a lot of other stuff. You're in the library, you're working in groups, you're seeking academic advising or tutoring, you're meeting with people. And so, what's really important to us is not just that we're stewarding these individual classes, but that also we're creating this community of students who are constantly being surrounded by different parts of the university. And I think that's one of the reasons why our program's been successful, is because we're accounting for that time spent making connections, forging relationships, creating social networks, seeking support, and also, having this time and space to actively imagine and reimagine your future. So, making sure that there are enough classes that there is a choice there, right? That there's enough study halls that you're able to choose between what you're doing, just like a college student, at the beginning of every semester, the drama of choosing your classes. I like to recreate that drama in a way. And so, yeah, these are some of the partnerships that we rely on regularly. So with the Poorview Center for Teaching and Learning, I mentioned the academic strategies programs, and we also have writing tutors. We have a partnership with the Yale University Library to help provide research support for any courses that have a research component, peer tutors for, and course specific TFs for classes that require it. So, for a math class, a math tutor. Accessibility resources. We've partnered with the Office of Career Services, both for students inside and for students who are re-entering and developing resumes and cover letters for employment. And then we also bring in transfer counselors and academic advisors regularly. So let me skip ahead. So another thing that I wanted to say about our program and what we're doing is it really does have an impact beyond just the students in the classroom. And this one student wrote to us, this program translates back to the block that we're from. So this is not just about the 12 people you see here in this one classroom, and every block we're in, the conversation there is about what's going on here. And you're sending teachers, mentors, role models, examples, especially for younger people, you're sending them back to your population. And indeed, every year when we do our admissions process, we see people who say, well, I met this guy and it just seemed amazing what he was doing. He gave me his books from the sociology class, and that's what made me want to apply. And it also actually, you need a GED or high school diploma to apply to our program, but a lot of times we'll see people who maybe aren't eligible one year, and then they spend a full year figuring, getting their GED, and then the next year they say, actually, I was in the facility in the prison a couple weeks ago, and I saw a bunch of guys who just passed their GED, just finished their GED, and they came to me and said, we got our GED and we're going to apply this year, so that's something that we do that we feel stimulates the entire prison. This is from another student. I've taken strides educationally that were once unfathomable, let alone unreachable, not only because of accessibility, but because of the mental, emotional, social, and intellectual standstill my brain and heart have been stored in. That YPEI isn't unlocked. The deans, professors, students, former students, and volunteers I've been blessed to come into contact with have treated me with an equality that has been foreign to me since my departure from the free world. And a Yale PhD candidate who taught with us for several years. I wrote, I have grown increasingly convinced that this initiative embodies the very best of what Yale is and aspires to be, a center of innovative teaching and research that seeks to educate and learn from the brightest, most creative students, wherever they may be, within and beyond the walls of Yale's physical campus. Let's see, how am I doing on time?
You do.
Okay, great. All right. And so, I'm going to drop some links in at the bottom, but I would encourage you there are, if you look, there's some articles that were written by YPEI students just about 2 years ago. This was the first time incarcerated students or writers had been featured in the Yale Daily News, and they're really powerful pieces about what it means to have Yale programming in a prison like McDougall Walker. And, over the last year, especially with our partnership with University of New Haven, we've really been able to gather a lot of support for what we're doing. We've received tremendous support from the faculty at Yale, from just a growing coalition of alumni, from current undergraduate and graduate students, from staff. And I'm going to share with you briefly, what we're doing doesn't just change to our mind the prison. Obviously we're working, we directly serve students in prison, but as a secondary effect, We believe it's actually changing Yale's campus and doing a lot of work in helping, rethink what does it mean, what are our obligations as a university here? And so this was a resolution of support for our initiative that the Faculty of Arts and Science Senate passed last year. And I think it's pretty incredible that it was, the final resolution is that they recognize that knowledge and analysis are a basis for enhancing social justice, and Yale's support of a prison education initiative aligns with Yale's mission and addresses a social justice crisis in the United States. And so I kind of think this was a historic resolution in many ways. But in talking about and thinking about our program, I always do turn back to the Yale College mission statement. And I will close by just saying, I read the Yale College mission statement all the time and ask that, we as a community read it and consider it through an abolitionist lens. So the mission of Yale College is to seek exceptionally promising students of all backgrounds from across the nation and around the world, and to educate them through mental discipline and social experience to develop their intellectual, moral, civic, and creative capacities to the fullest. The aim of this education is the cultivation of citizens with a rich awareness of our heritage to lead and serve in every sphere of human activity. And so we believe that if we can together imagine some sort of post-carceral future, then the leaders of that future may very well are incarcerated today. And in that scenario, in that case, the charge of the university is to invest now in those students as future leaders and citizens. And to really think about what that means, you really have, it becomes absolutely imperative for Yale to really think about students in prison as Yale students, right? As students who are going to be a part of the citizenship not too long from now, who are citizens, leaders and citizens. And you really don't have to change a word of the Yale mission statement to see that it aligns with what the university is trying to do. And so is Brian Jordan here? I was hoping to pass the mic on for a second on to a YPEI alum who was released this summer, but I don't see him here. He had a parole commitment this morning. So with that, perhaps I'll turn to questions if there are any.
Thank you. And I'll keep an eye out for Brian.
Okay.
So I will give everyone access to unmuting themselves. So you can ask your question, you can raise your hand, you can give me a hand emoji in order to ask questions. Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Shaw.
Karen, I'm getting tired of asking questions. I'm getting tired of my own voice. But here's my question for Zelda. Years ago, and I don't know if it still exists, there was a program called College Without Walls. Tell me, how does this compare with your program? And if it does, and does College Without Walls still exist?
Tell me a little more about College Without Walls, and I'll tell you how it compares.
And I don't know which colleges participated. I do know that Yale did, but they were for people to actually get a college degree, and they only had to meet like once a week, like on a Saturday, all day or something like that. But it wasn't going through the regular process of getting a college degree. And some of the participants I know were oh, I don't know, how do I term it? I don't want to be negative. We're ex-cons.
Mhm.
So that's why I wondered how the two, how the two compared. But you don't know about college without walls, and
It
that's
seems so.
understandable.
So just from, I mean, it seems like it's so, it's sounds like a great program. It's different, first of all, obviously, because it takes
Yeah.
place in prison.
Right there in court.
It's
Yeah.
our aim is to be a full-time college program, right? So
Yeah.
because obviously people's lives are very different when they're currently incarcerated rather than when they've just been released, and having, trying to get a job, nail down housing, and maybe enrolling full-time in college for a lot of our students is right when they get out is not especially viable, right? And so a part-time program like that is especially attractive. We do have a great program at Yale called the Eli Whitney Students Program, which I don't know if you've heard. It's for students who've taken a 5-year or more hiatus from their formal education, and it can be part-time, and it is for non-traditional college students. And there's also a sort of similar program at Trinity, called IDP, and now I'm forgetting what IDP stands for. But these are great. What you're describing and what those programs are absolutely incredible college venues for people getting out of prison. And I'm looking at it now. I see it still exists at UMass Amherst. I wonder if maybe the Eli Whitney Students Program was the sort of iteration it took at Yale. But in general, on taking classes on right, that's a good way to do college for someone maybe who's out. But in prison, basically, we're hoping for maximum intensity, right? So there are different programs or classes in each prison where they happen once a week, on Mondays, for example. But to us, that's not replicating necessarily the college experience, right? And what we're doing is trying to just steal time from being incarcerated, right? And make that turn it from time in prison to time in college, educational time. And so that's why, maximum intensity, as many days a week as we can offer classes, we will.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Shaw. Your questions are always great. Randall States is next.
Hi, yeah, I'm just wondering if somebody wanted to get involved, what sort of training do you have to, someone from outside of Yale, that for myself, I'm interested in doing some kind of work. I'm obviously not a teacher or a professor, but I know I've got something to contribute, but I don't want to just walk in and say, I want to do something, how do I get started? And if I find others that also want to get involved, what kind of training or support do we have to do a good job in the prisons?
Yeah, well, definitely, email me, and I'll put I have a bunch of things I'm going to put in the chat. I'll put my email in the chat. I mean, we, only faculty who teach at UNH or Yale, we have, in the prisons. And because it's clearing and orienting any faculty, volunteers, or TFs, it takes many hours. We have to do a security clearance, and someone goes through training both with our program and with the Department of Corrections. We don't take volunteers who are not affiliated with one of our campuses, just because also those are the restrictions that they have to have an affiliation with our program. But we do have a few ways that people can volunteer. One of them is our transcription network that I mentioned, where volunteers help us transcribe work that's written by students or transcribe, because also currently we're actually installing computers at the end of this month in the prison, laptops for our students to use. But to date, they have not yet had laptops. And so we've had volunteers who are transcribing their written work so that they can, have editable versions of essays for classes, but otherwise they're doing everything by hand. But also we have, sometimes interesting Zoom webinars on campus, especially these last couple of years, or events that are recorded that the transcription network can transcribe. And then we send it into our students so that they can sometimes even remotely participate in events like this. So sometimes we'll have a proxy who reads out a question that's been formulated by a student in the prison. And then when we transcribe that, entire transcript, they can see where their question fit in and what the event was actually like. So I'm putting my email in the chat, and I would say definitely feel free to anyone to email me if you're interested in getting involved. And I'm also actually pasting in the chat as well some of the links that I talked about, as well as I'm really sad that Brian couldn't make it, who would have been able to speak about the experience of being a student in the prison. But I know he would have wanted me to share with you a beautiful article that was written about him prior to his release in the Yale Daily News, and that's called Love on Trial, as well as a fundraiser for him. He's currently raising legal fees to prevent his reincarceration, because he's actually was in prison for 16 years and is currently out on bond, even though his sentence and conviction were vacated. Anyways, you can read about it in this article.
Thank you. Next is Martin Torres Quintero.
Greetings. Could you share with us the demographics of the participants? Like, I'm just trying to find out if there is one particular group of individuals that are more involved, or we know that the people that are incarcerated in Connecticut tend to be primarily, brown and
Brown and black.
Yeah, that's right. There's nothing that nails home the racism of, the criminal justice system than walking into a prison and seeing so many Black and brown faces. And so, yes, our program represents, it basically reflects the exact demographics of the population in our state prison. So, well, I believe it's it's about 75% Black and brown among our students. I will also say, actually, we're going to be starting in a second facility this year, which will be a women's prison. So we don't yet, have demographics on that, but so far we have not served any women, and we will be serving women in the coming year.
Great, that was going to be my other question. Thanks. About women. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Shaw and then Jacqueline McDonough.
I was just going to add a comment. What I remembered from College Without Walls. Also, I guess the participants got some college credits for their life experience. And I don't know how that worked, but, or how many credits they got or something. But that was also one of the characteristics of that College Without Walls. So, and if indeed you said it still exists in some other areas of the country, it might be what helped put together the Eli program that you mentioned. But yeah, I was just looking, just thinking, what's going on in the prisons, because they sure do get a lot of degrees. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that it has been a pleasure working with the Yale Prison Initiative, and I firmly believe that everything that Zelda and YPEI do is amazing. So it is my pleasure to be assisting this program.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Just see a comment from Patrice. This is amazing. I love how this program gives those doing time and outlet to do something meaningful, fulfilling with their lives. As a person with a young family member, currently within this experience as a family, we continue to encourage you to do something with your time. Thank you. We have time for one more question or comment before we close. No? Well, we will wrap then. Zelda, thank you so much for joining us today. Fantastic program. Thank you for sharing your email address. I encourage everyone to reach out to Zelda. She's a great person to get to know, having your network. So I encourage you all to reach out to her. So thank you. I'm gonna put my thank you emoji up in a moment.
Having me.
Thank you all for joining us today. I wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season, especially with this rising Greek-lettered variant. So please stay safe, please stay healthy, and I will see you all in the new year. Thanks again. Thank you, Zelda.